Hello, my friends. It is Hillary at Good Wellesley Dog Training. I am sitting in my car office. And I'm just back from another puppy consult, and I wanted to talk to lots of new puppy owners and dog owners about feeding their puppies or their new dogs they've just brought into the house. Because I keep hearing from people that the breeder that they got their dog from is recommending that they free feed their dog. So breeders are very well intended, and yes, many of them think of the puppies that they provide to families. They think of them as their grandchildren, their babies. And I understand it, sure. I mean, there's a lot of love that goes into a good breeder relationship. But here's the thing about food and training. What happens when you free feed your dog or your puppy is that they learn to see food as a resource that is constantly and always available. That bowl just gets magically filled up whether or not they see you doing it. Sooner or later, they start to just assume that whenever they feel like it, there'll be some food there, and maybe they'll go over and eat some, or maybe they won't. Usually, when we are told to free feed our dogs, it's because we are worried that they're not going to eat enough, and we want the puppies to eat enough for all the growing that they need to do. But in reality, what typically happens is when you start free feeding your dog, they eat a little bit here and a little bit there, and they graze, and that same food that they keep eating a little bit of and a little bit of starts to get really boring, because let's face it, I mean, most dogs often eat the same thing, and particularly with puppies, we can't introduce lots of different foods to them because it upsets their digestion, interferes with potty training, gives them loose bowel movements, none of which we want. So they've constantly got this supply of food that is becoming not a novelty to them. They're not hungry for it. They never really get an empty tummy, so they're not very motivated to work and learn new things and learn to engage with you by hand feeding, because frankly, they're just never really hungry. So I recommend to people that they transition as soon as they bring their dog home to 3 meals a day, and they portion out the amount of food that their vet and or breeder or they figure out that their puppy approximately should be eating, and they portion it out the night before each day into a bowl or a Ziploc bag or a container, and they use that daily portion of food for a little bit of training and then a meal, and you just divide it into either thirds, or if you have an adult dog, into 2 portions, and keep using a small amount of that kibble type food in between meals if you want to do some training or some engagement. At the beginning of the day, you see the whole portion that's been measured out for your dog, and at the end of the day, you will see what's left. If your puppy is on dry food and it does not finish what you have given it, you put it back into the container so that at the end of the day, you will know exactly how much your puppy is eating and how much your puppy isn't eating. If it has eaten everything and still seems hungry, then you'll know that your puppy needs to have more food. But in order for a puppy to be enthusiastic about its dog food and enthusiastic in its food drive to work for its dog food and little bits of hand feeding that you do, which is an incredible bonding exercise, it needs to not have the food available to it all the time. Water, sure. You can have water available to your puppy anytime it's out of its crate. Some people put a water bucket hanging in the crate. I don't, because frankly, dogs, in my opinion, don't need food 24/7. Not food, I mean water. They don't need water 24/7. And most puppies will frankly just make a mess out of their water bowl if you leave it in their crate. But in order to have a healthy food drive, both to work and to want to eat their meals when they are served, either twice a day or 3 times a day, you need to not leave food down all day long, because your dog won't eat more food when you leave it down. In fact, your dog will end up eating less. So I hope that that makes sense. One of the things that we get into a struggle with when we feel like our dog is not eating is we start upping the ante in their bowl. We start adding in extra things, or doing all of our training with training treats that are packaged from the pet store. Training treats that are packaged are just like bribing your kid with candy all the time. Sure, for some very specific things like really solidifying and teaching recall, when you want them to be super excited and come right back to you, yeah, you can use some really high value treats. But for everyday training in sit and down and luring and just getting your dog to engage with you, have them work for a little bit of their meal before offering them the rest of the meal. When a puppy is hungry, it's going to be paying attention to you. It's going to want to get the food that you are offering to it, and it will gladly accept kibble as its training reward. So remember, breeders are really great. Good breeders are great at breeding dogs, but they're not necessarily trainers. So when it comes to training your dog, you and your dog will be much better off if you do not free feed, because that is the surest way to get your dog to not value their food, get bored with eating it, and absolutely lose all their food drive. I hope that helps, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.